All right, good morning. We are recording now. And before we get started, Ivanova, did you want to give those reminders again for folks about
Yeah.
using Zoom?
Okay, so we're using Zoom, and so thank you all for being here today. Just a couple of reminders. When we are having our presenters speak, if you can mute your camera, mute your sound, your audio, and also hide your camera. And the best way to do that is if you see the little toolbar at the end of your screen, you should see a microphone and a camera. And so all you need to do is press on those and have the little red line come up on them. And that should be able to mute your camera and your audio. When we're not having presenters, you can have those on and that's fine. But we'd like to have people mute and hide their camera for the presenters because it helps better with the spotlighting of our presenters. So thank you for doing that. And it also helps not distract people with background noise. So thank you very much for doing that. And thank you so much for being here. We're gonna have an awesome advocacy day. All right, Jeremy, you want to do your introduction?
Excuse me, Ivanova. If you want, whoever's the host can easily, there's a spotlight function. They can spotlight the person, and that way we don't have to turn off our cameras if we don't want to.
Okay, thank you, Kyle.
Perfect, Kyle. Thank you. Yeah, and one of the things I really appreciate is that we've all become so comfortable with Zoom in a lot of ways. And so it's just awesome to be surrounded by so many people who can help show us how to spotlight and turn off the doorbell and do all those kind of other things. Well, thank you, Ivanova, for those remarks. And good morning, everyone. Welcome to our second Advocacy Day of the 2021 legislative session. Our focus for today is employment. For those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Jeremy Norton-Paul. I'm the Executive Director of the Washington State Developmental Disabilities Council. And if you know me, you know that I have a big heart for employment. I used to work at ProVail. I don't know if there's any ProVail peeps on here today, but big shout out to ProVail. I was a job coach and job developer for people, and I'm a big believer in employment and the power of jobs and earning wages at a good job. And so I'm really excited to hear from our presenters today, and I'm really excited for our rally a little bit later. And the first thing that I wanted to do was give a big thank you to everyone who makes these advocacy days possible, in particular to Self Advocates in Leadership, which Ivanova is the chair of, and also to the ARC of Washington State, and all of our other partners who make this kind of stuff possible. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to plan and to create presentations, to track bills, to collect information, to share it with people. There's a lot of people involved, so thank you to those who help. And I'm just gonna make sure that everyone's muted here so we don't get any echo. And the other thing I wanna do real quick is I would love for people to use the chat box or to tell me what your first job was, if you've had a job before. If you can think back to what your first paid job was. And while people are starting to think about that and type that in, I will let you know that my first paid job, well, first I'll say my first paid job was babysitting and yard work when I was 13 and 14. But my first official paid job where I was getting an actual paid check and paying taxes is I worked for a political campaign when I was in high school in Phoenix, Arizona. And my job was sort of do a lot of different things like filling the soda machine and changing the letters on the roof marquee and, running errands and making phone calls and stuff like that. And I think we can all think back to our first job: Fred Meyer's, daycare center, grocery cashier, hairstylist, hotel, Plato's Closet, nanny. There are some awesome jobs in here. And we can all remember how meaningful that is, how powerful that is to have a job, to contribute to our community, to feel that independence, to make a paycheck, to buy the things that we want to buy, to save money, to pay taxes so that we can help take care of other people in the community. So thank you all for sharing all those great examples of your first jobs. And the one thing that I wanted to do before I turn it over to Ivanova to introduce all of our speakers, I want to share a quick story with you about jobs that always sticks with me. And I think about this story probably every day or at least every week. And several years ago, I met a man named Gerald who was giving me a tour of his job site. And this was when I was working for a developmental disabilities agency in Tennessee. And he was describing to me how for the first 35 or 40 years of his career, he worked in a sheltered workshop. He worked in a segregated sheltered workshop making probably $1 or $2 an hour. He was making sub-minimum wages. And he described to me that that was the option that was available to him. He didn't really have a choice. You know, that was if he wanted to work, if he wanted to have something meaningful to do during the day, that was his choice, is he would go to the sheltered workshop and he would take apart complex computer parts and other things like that and help recycle all the technology pieces. He actually really enjoyed the job and did it very well, but he wasn't earning very much money, certainly not enough to save or to really buy the things that he wanted to buy. But when I met him, he told me this story about how his job coach and his employment provider helped him advocate to his employer to renegotiate that job and to convert it into a competitive integrated job. So not only did they figure out a way for him to work alongside all of his other coworkers and peers in an integrated setting, but they also figured out a way to pay him a fair wage for his work. And so that was a really powerful moment for him after, like I said, several decades of working for sub-minimum wages. And he was describing to me how amazing it was to finally have enough money to save. And the things that he wanted to save for were a vacation and healthcare expenses, right? And those are two simple things that we all have goals to be able to pay for, right? It's a very simple thing to have a job where we can pay for things like vacations and to be able to save up to pay for our healthcare expenses. And so, and the other thing is that a few years went by and I hadn't seen Gerald in quite some time. And I was scrolling through Facebook one day, and you know how those videos will sometimes start playing automatically when you're on Facebook. And I was scrolling through and I heard this familiar voice talking. And I was like, I know that voice. I know that voice. It was Gerald. And I looked at this video, and here Gerald was giving a tour of his own home where he was now living independently, right? So back up to, you know, a few years before, he was living somewhere that he didn't really like with a bunch of other people he didn't really get along with. He was working at a job for sub-minimum wages in a segregated setting that he didn't really like that situation either. And now a few years later, here he is giving a tour of his very own apartment that he's paying for with the wages that he is earning at his competitive integrated job. And I love that story, not only because it was such a positive experience for Gerald and his life, but it's a reminder for all of us of the power of high expectations. When we expect more of ourselves, when we expect more of other people, humans have this amazing ability to reach those expectations and exceed them. And so that's what employment is about. That's what today is about. It's about employment first. It's about believing that everyone deserves the opportunity to work in the community if that's what they choose, and everyone deserves to have a well-paying job, a competitive integrated job in the community. And so I wanted to share that story with you because I'm sure that all of you have your own Gerald story that sticks with you, whether it's your own life and your own job or whether it's someone else who inspires you every day. So with that, I'm actually going to hand it over to Ivanova, and Ivanova is going to introduce all of our fabulous presenters today. And just a reminder that our program is about an hour and a half today of presentations, but then after that, we have a really exciting virtual rally and a special guest with Senator Nguyen. So please hang around after the presentations for the employment rally around 11:30, 11:35. All right, Ivanova, I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce our first presenter.
All right, so our first presenter today is the awesome Courtney Williams. She is the Executive Director of the Community Employment Alliance, and she is an amazing ally to workers with disabilities. Take it away, Courtney.
Thank you so much, Ivanova and Jeremy. That was a wonderful story. I didn't include this in my part, but I will share. I once benefited from being a client of DVR, and here I am today. Things come full circle, and when we have those high expectations, big results come. So beautiful story, Jeremy. Thanks so much for sharing. Well, thank you everyone for being here. It looks like we have a packed audience. Virtual does take away that element of meeting and being in person. However, this is going to be an engaging setting too, and we have a lot of wonderful things to talk about today. 2020 was a year not for the faint of heart. We learned so much about the workforce of Washington and how our workers are essential to the economic recovery of our state. The potential for budget cuts was real and significant. We had to do our best to tell the story of why Washingtonians with disabilities who cannot be subjected to cuts in any capacity. The Community Employment Alliance selected 3 legislative priorities this session. You will hear momentarily the significance of what we chose to prioritize through the lens of individuals who utilize and thrive from supportive services. We first asked our decision makers to preserve the funding to employment services in Washington. We currently rank 39th among states in per capita spending on people with developmental disabilities. This is no time to cut services to a sector already underfunded. We then asked that Washington maintain investment in students transitioning out of school. Washington State has demonstrated that when system partnership exists, students with IDD are 3.9 times more likely to have a job when they exit school. Unfortunately, there is not a statewide collaboration on school to work transitions, so service access is not equitable. Too many students are missing job pathways. CEA's goal is to increase the number of young adults with IDD engaged with employment services and working 1 year after exiting school by 3% in 5 years. Lastly, we are asking for the elimination of subminimum wage. Senate Bill 5284 is now in Senate rules, and that committee meets this Friday afternoon. Each rules member will be allowed to pull, which means to advance one measure to the floor. There will also be a package pull, which is a group of bills chosen by committee leadership to be pulled all at once. Please contact your representative on the Rules Committee and ask them to pull Senate Bill 5284. We are asking Washington to restore the integrity of individuals with disabilities in the workplace by paying them a wage that aligns with meeting their basic needs. Do not sit this opportunity out.
Thank you so much, Courtney, for your epic words of encouragement. All right, so our next presenter will be Heather Harper from Morningside. Take it away, Heather.
Hello, my name is Heather Harper, and I'm a self-advocate for employment services for people with disabilities. I live near Olympia in Thurston County in the Legislative District 2. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today and share my employment story. Since 2013, I have been with the Office of the Governor in the position of Office Assistant 1. My main job is to sort and scan all the mail that comes to the governor's office. Through this job, I got to do a lot of real cool things. For instance, I have raised the 12-man flag at the Capitol. I held the MLS Cup when the Sounders won the championship. And I even got to be on stage with Governor Inslee when he opened the Special Olympic Games in Seattle. But I have not always worked at the governor's office. From my high school years until 2013, I worked a few different jobs and had employment support most of that time. Those jobs helped me build the skills I needed to qualify for my job at the governor's office. Thanks to the strong support I received from Morningside, I got my current job and I'm successful at it. My job coach supports me once a week and whenever else I need them. Being able to work makes me feel empowered, like I can do many different things. I am able to go shopping, pay my bills, and even pamper myself sometimes. During COVID, I couldn't work remotely because my job duties have to be done on site. Most of my coworkers work remotely at least part of that time. But I have been in the office 4 days per week throughout the pandemic. My job coach had to support me remotely for a while, but we got permission for her to come see me in person again. Having to stay home and not work would have been boring and depressing. I am so happy that I got to keep working. Funding for employment services is vital.
Till the earliest next contract year.
With disabilities, people who work, pay taxes, and pay their own bills. They're more independent and don't need as many other financial supports. If funding for employment services get cut, people could lose their jobs or not get jobs at all. This would be detrimental to people who need those supports in order to work. Without a paycheck, they may not be able to support themselves and would need other public supports to survive.
The act of punching a time clock means that we stand shoulder to shoulder with the world around us and become an active participant in our community. both internally and externally, the world around us, to the world around us. A large portion of a person's identity is wrapped up in what they do. For example, when you meet someone new, within the first few sentences, you have most likely told them your occupation. In short, our identity is very closely tied to what we do. For a person born with a disability or someone that has become disabled as a result of an accident or other life-altering event, these basic tenets of life in the world of work and society are completely different. In order to become a contributing member of society, we not only have to overcome our actual disability, we also have to contend with the imposed and or perceived vulnerability that society places on the disabled community. Very rarely is someone with a disability as a child ever asked what they want to be when they grow up. As a result of these conversations not occurring, there are generations of men and women that have no concept of the freedom and self-empowerment that having a job naturally provides. Two of the most powerful words in the English language are I am. They appear in sentences like, I am proud of myself. I am capable. I am an employee. In my experience, the idea of not working never entered my mind. I have always been very driven and known exactly how I wanted my life to look, in spite of being told, you don't need to work, you have a disability. Or even worse, the Gestapo-like tactics that I commonly experienced in the early days of my independence by DSHS case managers. It was not uncommon to hear things like, if you work, you run a real risk of losing your benefits. Thankfully, there are programs now like healthcare for disabled workers. HWD is a medical assistance program that allows someone with a disability to work, save money, and have their care providers covered. Job offered medical plans do not cover, in most cases, do not cover in-home health care. Even now, with the pendulum finally swinging toward the realization that people with disabilities are just as capable of being successful and valued employees as the rest of the workforce, employment services for those individuals are an awesome helping hand that helps to level the playing field for a differently abled new hire. In closing, providing employment services to people with disabilities is not bringing down expectations. It is, however, assisting individuals to rise up to their expectations for themselves and opening the door to their I am. Thank you.
Wonderful presentation, Jason. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom. I really relate with what you were saying. Thank you. All right, our next presenter will be Veta Adred and her job coach, Yoroko Jack. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Take it away.
Hello, everybody. Sorry. We're trying to practice social distancing as well. So, but we would like to say thank you for giving Vita and I the opportunity to talk about Vita's story and her journey from pre-vocational services to individualized employment. And before we move on, Vita, would you like to, we're gonna tell you about Vita. So Vita, where do you work at now?
Red Robins.
Red Robin.
Clean the dishwasher and clean the tables and wash the people food.
So you clean tables, you do dishwashing, and you bus tables, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. And what days do you work there?
Wednesday and
Friday and Saturday. Okay, good. You only work 2 days a week. Yeah. Do you like your job there, Vita?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And before working at Red Robins, where did you work at?
SCAT.
At SCAT.
Dreamers and airport for the Dreamers and Dreamers for the airplanes.
So you did packaging and assembly, packaging,
yeah, and
creamers for airplanes?
Yeah, and forks and knives, spoons for airplanes.
Awesome. That's really good. Yeah. So do you really like working at Red Robins right now?
Yeah.
Do you like getting a paycheck?
Yeah.
What do you do with your paychecks?
In the bank.
You put it in the bank? You save your money?
Yeah.
What are you saving for?
For clothes, shopping.
Clothes and shopping. Awesome. Yeah. That's really awesome, Vita. I'm so happy for you. Yeah. So today, Vita is my Jeremy story. And I think Vita worked at SCAC Industries, doing packaging and assembly for, I think, about a little over 20 years. But she was getting paid some minimum wages. And it was just recently when pre-vocational services ended in 2019. That's when we started having Vita go through a transition from pre-vocational services into individualized employment. And that involved a lot of doing a lot of discovery and exploration on what Vita is really interested in and what her skills are. And with the help of the next program, we were able to do that. Shout out to Kathy and David Murahashi for helping us with their next program to find what Vita really loves to do and what Vita would like to do as for employment. And also, I would like to say that there were a lot of fear as far as and uncertainty as far as having Vita transition into community employment, just because she's been in some sheltered workshop for so long. Even our own family were kind of concerned about and afraid about what that might look like for her to get into the community. But now Vita's worked at Red Robin for almost 2 years. Coming May, it'll be her second year there. And I am so proud of her because she does fantastic job there every Friday and Saturday. She never misses work. She comes to work smiling, ready, and she feels a sense of independence. And as you can tell, she's really excited that she gets to save her money and go shopping for clothes, because that's what she likes to do on her spare time. And before she worked at Red Robin, she used to work Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. versus now she works only 2 days a week, 3 hours a day, and she makes the same amount of money that she did when she worked in a sheltered workshop. So you can see the difference there, getting paid some minimum wage versus getting paid minimum wage and working in the community. And I just want to say I'm so proud of Vida for coming a long ways. Are you happy with your job?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I think that's my Jeremy story, but it's my Vida story, and I'm so proud of her for being able to share her story and having me help her share her story with you guys today. So please help support and some minimum wages. Thank you. Can I say thank you, Vida?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. That is so awesome, Vida. I'm so glad you are enjoying your job and getting to buy clothes. It would be a lot harder to buy clothes getting some minimum wage. So I'm really glad you're enjoying that. All right. So we're going to have a video. We're going to now have an awesome advocate that I actually know personally, Anthony Nash, tell his story. Go ahead, Anthony, take it away.
Okay, hold on, let me. All right, my name's Anthony Nash. I actually am a part of many advocacy groups, and I actually started working in a sheltered workshop, and it's like I got treated with the worst ever respect and paid like dimes to quarters an hour, and I didn't like that. And after being treated bad, I quit and I got into advocacy. Then I worked at a senior center as a dishwasher slash nurse assistant, and then I actually quit that because I got treated in ways. But then I worked on my advocacy, and now I am the online coordinator for People First of Washington. And it's always good to have a working wage, because working a wage gives you more independence, more to do what you want, and not be put in depression, because you get to live on your own, make a family, have a happy life, and all from working a good wage and showing the world that you are independent and able to take care of yourself and do what you need to do is right for yourself. So I do encourage that we get the eliminating some minimum wage passed and and everything. And I encourage all of you to help us advocate for this bill and to shut down sheltered workshops and to get a really good paying job and say we can work, we can make our own decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. And just to let people know, we have fixed the capacity issue. And so if there are people that were trying to get in, you could try to encourage them to try again now that we have fixed the capacity issue. Sorry for the inconvenience of that. And now we're going to watch a video from Jessica Renner about her employment supports. Take it away, Jessica.
Hi, I'm Diana Stadden with the ARC of Washington State.
And I'm Jessica Renner from Child Advocacy Leadership, and I'll be using a speech device for this video.
We're here to talk to you about how to become a trusted resource for legislators on issues that affect your life.
Even though your elected officials represent you, they can't do this very well if they don't know what you want.
That's right. With so many topics for legislators to learn about, your knowledge of developmental disabilities helps them to do their job. You are the expert in telling your story and how it relates to decisions they are making. Here are some tips to help you make the most impact. Your time with legislators, staff, or aides is short, and your message should be too. When you communicate, sum up what the issue is and why it's important to you. Have a specific request related to a bill or budget item. Attack the problem, not the person. And follow up with a thank you. If you're not sure what to talk about, visit arcwa.org/advocacy for issue summaries, as well as a list of bills and budget proposals. If a legislator asks for information you don't have, like data or charts, it's not only okay to say you don't know, it's the very best response to give. You can always follow up by contacting the ARC of Washington State or ask another advocacy organization for the answers. By doing this, you greatly increase your credibility and strengthen your legislative relationships. Bottom line, stick to what you know, which is your life and how the issue affects you.
There are lots of ways to let lawmakers know what you think. You can send a message by email. Call the toll-free legislative hotline at 866-562-6000. Phone your legislator directly. Schedule a virtual meeting with your legislator. Chat with your legislator's legislative assistant. Testify at a hearing. Attend a legislative forum or town hall meeting.
Because of the pandemic, almost all legislative advocacy will be done remotely for the foreseeable future. To set up a meeting with a legislator, email their office to schedule an online appointment through Zoom. Meeting times are limited to about 15 minutes. You don't need a Zoom account, but you will need to download the Zoom app or use a browser. Your legislator's aide will provide you the link. For Zoom tips, visit arcwa.org. Remember, be polite and respectful to legislative assistants who act as gatekeepers to your legislators' busy schedules. You may find that they have a family member or close friend who's affected by the same issues you face. A good relationship with them can make a big difference. For remote testimony, visit the committee schedules page at app.leg.wa.gov/committee schedules. Select remote testimony for where the bill's being heard, House or Senate, and follow the instructions. Because remote testimony is so new, these steps may change. If you need help to testify on a bill, call or email the Legislative Information Center at 360-786-7573 or support@leg.wa.gov. If you don't want to testify, you can still make comments on the bill for the committee to consider. To do this, visit the bill's page and select Comment on this bill and follow the directions.
Don't forget about social media. A lot of legislators have accounts on Facebook and Twitter, where you can comment or watch live stream chats and virtual town halls.
It's so important to stay informed and involved. Participate in virtual advocacy days. Sign up for the ARC's action alerts. Get updates at arcwa.org and follow us on Facebook. Connect with local parent and self-advocate groups.
For more information, check out our Hot Tips publication on our advocacy page at arcwa.org, available in English or Spanish.
And remember, change is made by those who show up.
is there anything you would like to add, Jessica?
I'd be happy to answer any questions or any comments that people have about the video.
Well, it looks like a lot of people
very helpful.
It looks like a lot of people have said wonderful things in the comments. I can read them out loud for you. Brilliant, very helpful, great video. The video was amazing. Fantastic video, I love it. Awesome presentation. I love the video, Jessica. And thank you for sharing the video, Jessica. It was wonderful, very informational. You are a movie star, and I definitely agree with that. Thank you, Jessica. And also the video has been posted in the comments. If you would like to share that video on your social media, that is encouraged. So it's, Jeremy, you may have to scroll back on the comments a little bit, the chat a little bit to get to the link, but, oh, and the link has just been posted again by Jeremy. Thank you, Jeremy. All right, now we have our next presenters, Ben and Brianna Balin with Gailey McGinnis of Shoreward. Take it away.
Well, good morning, everyone. I will be speaking on behalf of my daughter, Brianna Balon, who's here with me, and I'll be talking about from a high-level perspective of the transition program. My daughter, Brianna, was diagnosed with a genetic disorder, trisomy 21, or commonly known as Down syndrome. As such, she exhibits both physical and intellectual characteristics of the disorder. She finished her transition program at Lake Stevens School District in 2019. At the onset of that transition program, my wife and I were both very anxious as we embarked with the program. Working with various parties involved and learning the roles and responsibilities can be quite daunting. My wife and I, however, were encouraged by the fact that we were getting the help we need in trying to achieve a core objective we sought since we started Brianna's individual education plan, and that is to ensure that Brianna can eventually be a productive member of her community. Partly driven by the IEP, a collaboration team worked on action plans that included vocational services and what to do, when, and where. That was a very powerful tool in ensuring fidelity to the plan's goals and objectives. Much more so with the tracking and review of the action items to ensure that they are implemented. The assistance provided by vocational services, Sherwood in particular, especially on the second year and onwards, was immeasurable. They provided an assortment of support ranging from resume writing, interview practices, and advocated with employers on our daughter's behalf. As a culmination, we considered our daughter's employment with the Boys and Girls Club a couple months after completing the program as validation of the effectiveness of the services provided. Even with the employment, Sherwood continues to provide on-the-job coaching, and lately with COVID-19, training via FaceTime. As parents, we view Brianna's employment as important because it enables her to give something back to her community instead of just being its ward. Also, there is nothing comparable to the simple joy and satisfaction that I see in my daughter's eyes whenever she receives a paycheck. For her, she is earning a living. Work also provides her the opportunity to interact outside the family for continuing personal development and learning. In closing, I would like to say that while these are one of the most turbulent of times, we must continue to strive such that those who are the most at risk to be marginalized are provided the quality support services they need to succeed in life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. I'm Gail McGinnis, and I work with Brianna as her employment specialist. While working with Brianna through her last year of transition and then moving on to successful paid employment, she has learned many skills and enjoys being a part of the team and part of her community. It takes many individuals to make this happen. Most of all, it's been due to the terrific support for parents in allowing, scheduling time for going out for interviews, job developing, helping with her skills at home, and regular communication with me. And for that, I thank you, Ben. And Brianna.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for your sharing your experience. Now we will hear from Diane Staden on our bills of interest, unless anyone has any questions for our last presenters. All right, take it away, Diane Staden.
Okay, hello everybody. Now, I have to do a shout out for Jessica Renner because she jumped in here last minute when somebody canceled that was going to be speaking today. And so we hadn't gotten the coordination all quite together, but she had something she was going to play before the video, and I'd like her to do that. So Jessica, can you go ahead and
I can do that.
My name is Jessica Renner. I am in the 33rd Legislative District. The video you are about to watch was created by the ARC of Washington State. It features Diana Staden and myself. I am using a speech device to communicate. This video features tips on how to speak with your legislators, as well as what you can during advocacy days and this time when everything is virtual. I hope you enjoy watching this video.
Did everybody hear that?
Yes, great job, Jessica. And Jessica was showing that a lot of times it takes some technology and technological access that can help people do their jobs, and they just need that little bit of assistant. So great job, Jessica, and great job on the video too. We were really happy with how that came out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am going to share my screen so that we can look at the bills of interest. And this is where we are right now. Now, the first section is the budget bills. And basically what's happened so far is the governor has given his budget proposal of what he thinks the state should spend on different services. And he didn't make any cuts to services for people with developmental disabilities. But his is only the first stage of this. In mid-March or so, we'll have both the House and the Senate. They'll release their budget proposals, and we'll see what, if any, cuts they make, or if they add to some of our programs like the governor did. The two other budget bills that have come out recently are House Bill 1367 and 1368. And what those did was they took our rainy day fund, which we put money in that every year to just keep in case of an emergency we need money for the state. And they're going to sweep all that money and put it into last year for developmental disabilities and long-term care. And the reason they're doing that is because the CARES Act gave a federal match to any money that the state was willing to put into services. They had only just put the normal amount they would, and they realized we could take that rainy day fund, put that in that budget for last year, and then we can get a federal match for all of that, which brings in more money to the state for services. So one of them does it through the end of December, and the second bill does the same thing from January through June of this year. So the enhanced rates that we had to have for supported living because of the pandemic, those things are all covered through June, which is when our next biennial budget starts. So that's the, whoops, going a little fast there. So we, under medical, there's a few budgets down here, but they haven't moved anywhere. If you look in the column that says status, that tells you if it's had a hearing or whether it's moved on to its next committee, such as this 1061. That's for youth who are in the foster care system that have a developmental disability. Once they leave, there's no services for them. And so this bill would make it so if they have a developmental disability and can qualify for service through the Developmental Disability Administration, that they would be able to get those services so they don't just fall away into nothing after they get out of the foster care system. And then the other bill behind that, 1347, would give enhanced rates to foster care families who provide care for kids who may have significant behavioral challenges. And so those bills, you can see where they're at. They've had a public hearing and one scheduled for exec session today. Under education, we have quite a few education bills. One of them is 1153, increasing language access in the public schools. That's really important. We've been trying to get it for a few years now, but they need to have language access available, a technical assistance program for that. And it is scheduled for exec session, which means it hopefully will move out of the committee and move on in the process on the 12th. You can see there's, I don't want to go through every single one of them. Senate Bill 5237 has to do with childcare and early childhood development. The Birth of Three programs included in that, in-home parent support. And that has made its way into the Financial Committee, which is Ways and Means in the Senate. And so we'll see what happens with that one. And then they want to promote the Office of the Education Ombuds because they have ombuds there who specialize in working on special education issues. And so families who struggle with getting their child's needs met can turn to the OEO and get help and assistance for working with the school district. And we need to make sure parents are more aware of that. And so that's what this bill does. Then when we get, whoops, I think I missed something, civil rights and legal issues. There's a lot of different things that you'll see in here. Part of it due to the pandemic, we've had some things that they realize need to be changed. If there's a disaster, we don't want people isolated in their residential settings, and they need to have access to their family, even if it's just through virtual means. So there are bills to try and deal with that. House Bill 1227, it protects parents who are accused of abuse and neglect of their child and their child gets taken away. And unfortunately, this has happened a number of times to parents who have a developmental disability, that CPS thinks that just because of their disability, they would be a danger to the child, and they take them away the moment they're born at the hospital. And that shouldn't happen. So this gives protections for parents. There has to be real evidence that there is something going to happen or is wrong in order for them to take the child. And they put some protections in there for that. Clarifying the authority of the DD ombuds is another bill. When we get into residential services, one of the big ones that came up this week is House Bill 1490. And that would make it so that if during this pandemic, if you can't pay your electrical or heating bill, they can't shut it off on you. It's too important to have your heat, as we well know, with as cold as it is outside today. And so they don't want to see people who are low income, people who have disabilities and typically have small incomes, they don't want to see them getting their heating shut off. And so this bill would make it so they could not have it shut off, even if they're behind on their bill. One of the big bills this year, Senate Bill 5268. And that bill has a lot of pieces to it. It's to help transform the system that serves people with developmental disabilities. We need caseload forecasting. Developmental Disabilities Administration is the only agency that is not included in that. And it's why they have a huge waiting list of almost 15,000 people. So we need caseload forecasting. We need to look at the rates for residential services, a lot of things in that bill, which it's a really good thing, and it's in Ways and Means now. And so we're going to keep pushing to get it moved forward. The big one for employment, there's one bill this year that we're really working on, and that's to eliminate those sub-minimum wage certificates. That's a huge deal. Last year, we worked on that bill. Self-advocates got to the end and were able to get that to apply to all state agencies. So none of the state agencies can pay sub-minimum wage now. But we also need to have that to private businesses out in the community too. They shouldn't be paying sub-minimum wages either. And so we're working on this. It got exec'd out of committee, passed on to the next one, so that's good. And so there'll be an action alert coming out before long that shows all these bills. And if you click on the bills that are important to you, you can let your legislator know, this is important. Please make sure this gets passed. I'm not sure if we're doing questions now or if we want to leave those till the end. Jeremy and Ivanova, how would you like to do that?
Well, Courtney, I know that the rally was scheduled to start at 11:35. Do you want to? I'm hearing an echo. Do you hear that too?
No.
I'm hearing the echo. Oh, I'm in.
But Diana.
Diana,
I'm also hearing an echo.
Okay, I'm hearing several people talk. I'm sorry.
Diana, could you mute? I think it'll go.
There's a lot of echo.
All right, let me try that again. Okay, so Courtney, I know that Senator Wynn will be here a little later for the rally, and so I'll kind of look to you to, do we have some time now for some questions before Alex and Ivanova close up this section? Just want to make sure that we're not running into your...
Yeah, I think that's fine. We were going to give folks a break at 11:30. Senator Wynn will be here at 11:35. Okay. We have some exciting things to follow after he presents. And so I'd love for folks to stay on. Questions would be great right now.
Yeah, so why don't we do that? Let's see what questions folks have about these bills. And then Alex and Ivanova can close it out before we take that break.
So Jeremy, do you want to shoot the questions to me?
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat box. I haven't seen any questions so far, but go ahead. You can either unmute yourself or you can put them in the chat box. And yeah, Diana, I'll read them as they come up.
This is Margaret Lee. Can I ask a question?
Go for it.
Can you tell me why Senator Nguyen is interested in developmental disabilities?
That's an excellent question. And I know, Courtney, you are one of his constituents, so maybe you can offer some insight as to his interest in our issues.
I'm not one of his constituents, but Lisa Latchford is. And I think we're expanding the field of champions, Margaret. I think more and more people are getting interested in the population we're serving. They see the essential value, and he's one that co-sponsored this bill to eliminate sub-minimum wage. So that would be my guess. He will be on, so I'm sure we can proctor that question to him. Lisa Latchford, do you have anything you want to add?
Sure, thanks Courtney and Jeremy. Yeah, Margaret Lee, Senator Wynn, his wife is a special ed teacher. His father has a disability and he has a cousin with a disability. He is a huge champion for individuals with disabilities, and he's a co-sponsor for the Ending Sub-Minimum Wage bill. So we really like Senator Wynn. So come join us for the rally at 11:35. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret Lee, for that question. Are there any, so another question here from Christine asks, do House Bill 1367 and 1368 also cover enhanced rates for IPs? Diana, do you want to address that?
Yes, I'm pretty sure that they do. Anything that was covered under the CARES Act that we got last time, those enhanced rates will continue via 1367 and 1368.
Thanks, Christine. Any other questions, comments? You can unmute yourself if you'd rather speak it. So there's a question from Karen. There's been some questions about the technical assistance supports included in the bill to end sub-minimum wage. This would help people transfer from a current sub-minimum wage situation to something else. Can we share more about this important element? Yeah, now would be a great time, Karen, or anyone else who wants to speak to that, because there are some parts of the bill that I think might be hard for some people to understand, that if they're not used to reading that language. So can you explain more about what that means?
Are you calling on Karen Williams?
Yeah, Karen, or if you want to hand it to someone else, that'd be fine too.
I'd also say Debbie Myers.
Yeah, if Debbie Myers is on the call, she's definitely more experienced in this, in that she has helped transition people from sub-minimum wage to minimum wage. Debbie, are you on?
I am on, and thank you. This has been really terrific information today. And the thing that when we help Senator Randall to put forth this bill, that one of the things that we really tried to look at and make sure was covered for folks that are still on sub-minimum wages is that they would be they would have the assistance and support that they need from their waiver, their current waiver, or supports from their service provider to be able to transition to minimum wage or above in the community, and that they would have the supports from GDA and all of us, so service providers that we provide employment services, and some of us have done this. Many of us actually have done this. SCAC was one of the later ones to transition everyone from sheltered work or sub-minimum wages to community opportunities. And we all want to be a resource to the less than 200 people left on sub-minimum wages in our state. And so I think, we tried to be very careful and thoughtful in making sure that that would be covered in this bill. And Senator Randall feels strongly about that as well, as I understand. So I don't know if I answered the question, but I do want you to know that this was thoughtful and wanting to make sure that people do not get left behind, because that's the goal in all of this, is that these will be better opportunities or the same opportunities, but at minimum wage or above, because some employers may not fully understand why people are being paid at a minimum wage. I hope that helps.
Debbie. There were just some related questions. And I think, Jeremy, you answered it.
Yeah. So someone asked about how many employers are affected, or you could also extend that to ask how many people are being affected by this. Someone might have the more accurate, up-to-date information, but I often will reference this website that I put in the chat box from the Federal Department of Labor. And it was last updated just a few months ago in October. And it basically gives you an Excel spreadsheet with every single company in the United States that has a 14C certificate, which is what allows them to pay some minimum wage. And if you just put a filter on the spreadsheet and just sort it by Washington, it's showing that it looks like there are 14 employers in Washington who employ about 122 people. And that might have changed in the last few months, but that's according to the Department of Labor data. So I hope does that answer your question? Was that Ava who asked? Yeah, let's see. Yes. And I know that Margaret also asked a question about if employers will hire people with disabilities. And I think that was already addressed, but just to emphasize that, fortunately, we've seen over the years that can and is already happening, that there are many folks with disabilities out there who are working in competitive integrated jobs, and just as many employers who have already demonstrated an openness and willingness to hire them and are benefiting from their work. So I think that we can see from the data that there are relatively few businesses and relatively few people who are still using this outdated practice. And so this bill would help make sure that it doesn't start to happen again, or it doesn't start to increase again. So luckily, we've already proven it's possible. We've proven that it's a win-win. Courtney.
There's multiple Courtney Williams
okay.
on the phone or on the call, because I think they've used my Zoom account. So I'm not sure who proctored that question.
Yeah, so someone was talking about their personal experience and maybe recently becoming more aware of this issue. If that was you, do you mind unmuting yourself and just telling us a little bit more about that perspective?
I believe that was me. I'm Taylor Cunningham, and I am an employment specialist at Chinook Enterprises in Skagit County. I actually just moved from Ohio to Washington last summer. And so this is a completely new perspective for me. Before coming to do work here at Chinook Enterprises, I worked in education. So I did have exposure to a lot of different people and learners, but this is not something that I saw every day. I do recall many times just reflecting on one fella I saw working at a mall, sitting in his power chair and offering samples. And that was about the only time I ever saw someone with a disability that I, could see or know out there working in the community. So it's very new to me. I've learned a lot. I feel extremely humbled by this experience, and it's something that I continue to try to dive into and learn more about.
Thank you so much for sharing that. There's also a great question here from Luke about reimbursement rates and wages. He noted that the state and the counties really stepped up to help supported employment and community inclusion providers, keeping valuable employees during the pandemic. Is there any discussion about raising the reimbursement rates for those services post-pandemic? And also a related issue is rising minimum wages and other wage issues have put a lot of pressure on our system. So I know that there are certainly efforts and discussions about the importance of fair wages and also fair reimbursement rates. So does somebody maybe with CEA or someone else want to talk about efforts to focus on reimbursement rates and wages?
One of the Courtney Williams, are you up for this?
Let me think about, I want to be thoughtful with my response.
Sure. I know that one thing that we're really focused on this year was, supporting CRSA, the community residential services, and getting their rate increase. And so I'll say that CEA doesn't have rate increase as a focus, though we know that retaining a workforce and having people who are skilled and professionally trained to both talk to a business about hiring and support individuals with a range of creative supports is important. I would just say that this year we're more focused on making sure residential get the rates they need to provide the day-to-day support.
Well, and that's a great response. And I'll say it is not falling off our radar. We are being intentional and methodical with how we proceed. We're a community of providers, and this year residential, I mean, we all sit at the table and serve the same individual, and we're rallying behind residential right now.
Thank you, Courtney and Karen. And for those of you who are tracking Senate Bill 5268, one of the items in that is a residential rate study that many of us are supporting, including CRSA. So that is one small but important step toward making sure that we have the data we need to make a strong argument about the importance of higher reimbursement rates. Ava asked a good question about small businesses. So a legislator might ask a question like, well, what about the small businesses? I mean, you hear about this sub-minimum wage bill, and one of the first things that comes to mind is, well, what about the employer, right? For if you're a legislator, especially, and I can offer my perspective, and anyone else can jump in here too. But the first thing that I would do is remind them that there are currently only 14 businesses in the state of Washington still doing it. And then there are literally hundreds and hundreds of businesses, many of them small, who have already proven that it's possible and economically viable to hire all sorts of people. And so the best response I think would come from one of those business leaders who could really articulate a good case for exactly why, when you find the right fit and you find the right employee, it doesn't matter if they have a disability, they're going to help your bottom line as a business. And so that's what I would point out to that legislator to help them understand the perspective of the issue we're talking about. We're not talking about hundreds of businesses who are struggling to pay people fair wages. Yes, we are in a pandemic. However, there are many, many businesses who have been doing this a long time, and we can learn a lot from them. Before I go on to the next question, anyone want to add anything to that response?
I would just add, I mean, if you proctored it as if it was a GOP Senator Ava, so I would just add fiscally as a state, it's a responsible thing to do. We're going to be seeing this at a federal level be implemented with a $300 million price tag, which doesn't even cover state costs of supportive services. So it's going to look a little differently at the federal level if they get to it fast or quicker than us. So it is our opportunity to do this now with state input, our values represented in this bill, which they are. So this is the opportunity to do it.
This is Chris Brandt, and I would just add that Senator Mullet from the 5th District, which is Issaquah, where AtWorks there's a lot of people, has sent us a reply to some information we shared with him of his support of ending sub-minimum wages. Not just as a senator, but as a business owner who has employed people with disabilities in the past. So that might be, he might be someone that you might refer someone who has questions to. They can talk to a fellow senator who is supporting the bill and believes that small businesses, as the economy recovers, can continue to employ people with disabilities at minimum wage or better. And many have continued to work in those businesses as essential workers during the pandemic.
Thank you both. I think we have time for another couple of questions and comments. Cheryl asked a great question about the importance of having access to job coaches to help support people, and wondering if that is included somehow in the technical assistance costs, or if that's separate. Are there any employment providers or anyone else who can address that question?
Debbie Myers, do you want to add? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot.
Well, I think that it would be part of a person's waiver to continue to have employment supports, and that would be a focus, is to make sure that people had a job coach and the supports that they needed to be successful, either on the job they have currently that could be paid at minimum wage or above, or to move on to another job, and the job development and discovery and planning that goes along with that.
Thank you so much. I saw a comment from Margaret here reminding us about the importance of continuing to tell stories. Absolutely. As we all know, what happens a lot with legislative advocacy is when there's a bill or an issue like this, legislators will often hear from a, even if it's a small group of opponents, but a relative, very vocal group of opponents. And it's not that their perspectives are not valid or that their fears or concerns are not valid, but if that is the only stories and concerns that a legislator's hearing, in their mind, that's what the whole state thinks. And then they end up making decisions according to the people that they hear from. So all the more important for all of you, all of us, to continue sharing those positive stories about the thousands and thousands of people who are working successfully, who have had great support from providers and family and natural supports at work to make it possible. Hearing from business leaders who can talk about that business argument and the business perspective. So thanks for that reminder, Margaret, about sharing those stories.
Josie has her hand
up. Oh,
up.
yeah, go for it, Josie. Thanks, Ivanova. Josie, go for it.
Sorry about that. I have a little bit of my story under some minimum wage until I was a child, and because the school that I went to, the middle school, they had a working program for students, and even the students during the working program, we only were paid $1 a day, but we were children. And I'm not talking bad about the school, because the working program was great, but because it did teach us about working and working habits. And I did have friends, like my friend Jasmine. She was volunteered to recycle, to put paper through the paper shredder at a local business. And there was one paper that, because she was blind, she could feel it. And she was blind and she didn't want to put it in there, and because she could feel it, and she wanted to keep it, and she was told, you have to put it in there. And she was like, no, I don't want to. It feels pretty. It feels nice, So, I mean, and I don't know but she was a volunteer and they didn't pay her anything. So I stand up for people who are disabled, but a lot of, like my friend Jasmine, because she was blind, they use her as a volunteer. They didn't pay her anything. And it was very sad. But when I was a child, yeah, the school had kids helping the janitor and working for the janitor. And if you did that during the whole school year, you were often at the end of the school year, you were often asked, hey, would you like to come back during the summer and just work for the janitor? And that's when they actually paid us the minimum wage of, I think we got about $5 or $7. It was about that in the 80s or 90s. So that was like my first job and my first job experience. which was great, you know, but we were only children and they did use us, but it, you know, it's just an experience that we had.
I really appreciate you sharing your experience growing up, Josie, and we're glad that those experiences helped shape you into the advocate you are today, and that you can join us in helping advocate for these issues and make sure that everyone can get fair wages when they work. So I think now would be a good time to ask Alex and Ivanova to share some closing thoughts with us and talk to us about some ways to get involved. And then just a reminder, after that, we'll take a short break and come back for the employment rally with Senator Wynn. So Ivanova and Alex, it's all you.
Right, Alex, I'll let you start first. You're muted, Alex.
Well, as Alex is getting his speech ready there, I just want to remind everybody there are no hearings of bills to testify on today, but there are bills that you can watch pass out of their committee. And if you go to www.leg.
I got a job during this pandemic.
Good.
I got a job during this pandemic.
Thank you for sharing that, Alex. That's very true. And you've been doing a great job. Is there anything else you would like to add, or would you like me to continue? Okay. So thank you for letting me know. So other things that you can do during this time is so 5284 is now going to the Rules Committee. And so if you know any of the legislators that are in the Rules Committee, you can email them and ask them for it to come out of rules and be allowed on the floors. That's what the Rules Committee does. If they are the ones that control what bills go out on the floor to be voted on. And so that is a way that you can do that. It looks like Senator Nguyen has come on here. Thank you for joining us, Senator Nguyen. And we're just letting people know what they can do. We're just about to have a rally for Employment Day, Advocacy Day. And also there is an emerging leaders meeting with the DD Ombuds. If anyone is interested in that, it starts at 1:30. That's another thing that you can do today. You can also just send an email to your legislators on the bills that you want to support and why they matter to you.
Thank you.
So
Ivanova.
now I'm gonna let Courtney introduce Senator Nguyen. Thank you.
Well, Senator Nguyen, we had you on at 11:35, but we're happy to accommodate your schedule. We just wanted to make...
now is perfect if
Cool.
you're available. Yeah.
Well, we're cool with it. That means we can just continue on. We don't need to dismiss anyone for a break. We got you.
Thank you.
Senator Nguyen, thank you so much for joining us. It is such a great opportunity to see you as a champion for individuals with disabilities in the workforce, and we just appreciate you so much. I just wanted to do a quick bio. I know several of us all know you, but I wanted to make sure everyone has the opportunity to know your roots. So we know you were born in White Center, raised in the Burien area. You currently live in West Seattle. You have experiences growing up in an immigrant community as a son of a Vietnamese refugee and being raised by a single mother, which helps inform you a lot of your decisions today. Since being elected, you have used your time in office to advocate for those who have been historically underrepresented and to push progressive legislation that provides services to those in need. You prioritize criminal justice reform, environmental health, and progressive tax reform. You're the vice chair of the Senate Human Services, Reentry and Rehabilitation Committee, and a member of the Transportation Committee, the Rules Committee, and the Environment, Energy, and Technology Committee. Thank you so much for being here, Senator Nguyen. Thank you for being a co-sponsor to Senate Bill 5284. And we look forward to hearing what you have to say, my friend.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. And I see some familiar faces. Eric, good to see you. I usually love being able to hang out in person. And obviously with this pandemic, we have to do it virtually, which is okay. We're going to persevere and get through this as well. First off, I just want to say thank you for your advocacy and your work. It is truly being heard, and it is truly part of the process. And just want to say, keep it up, because you're doing a fantastic job. One of my favorite days of advocacy is this, and getting buttons and other things as well to be a constant reminder of the efforts that are going on. Quickly about the sub-minimum wage bill, I think for me, this obviously is an equity issue. If you are working, you deserve to be paid a fair wage. And we shouldn't have sub-minimum wage in general, right? And like, I understand, some of the advocates who may be not necessarily supportive of this, but I do believe this is a very, very basic step to ensuring that we recognize the value and worth of our communities, and that means all of our communities as well. I happen to serve, I kind of caught on to the very last second. I happen to serve on the Rules Committee. I pulled, I think, this similar version last year. It was obviously pared down for a couple of reasons, and definitely have it on my list for review as well. So I suspect that it will likely get a vote, and I suspect that that could probably happen in the next couple of weeks as well. So I think whoever was given that presentation about what the Rules Committee does, that's fantastic, and you're absolutely right. And what's funny is that most folks don't actually know the process well enough to understand that that is one of the key components. Is not only do you need to make sure that you have a bill that's being moved, but you have to get the vote. And being able to vote on it means you need to have friends on the Rules Committee, which thankfully I'm on, to be able to shepherd these things through as well. So I'll keep it pretty short, but I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time today to advocate on behalf of such an important community, raising issues like this. I will say that in the legislature, we see 2,000 or 3,000 bills in any given year, 2,000 or 3,000 bills, but we only pass maybe 100 to 200, or in good years, maybe 300 bills, but less than 10%. So oftentimes people think that politics is about right or wrong or good or bad or Democrat or Republican. That's actually not the case. It's making sure that your issue is worthy of being discussed. And now that we have one of the most diverse legislatures in the history of Washington State, where you have champions from across the spectrum, our issues are now being prioritized. Your issues are now being prioritized. So it's more important than ever to make sure that you're giving your feedback and your input so that we're basically able to inform the decisions that we're making right now at Washington State and in Olympia. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Very glad to see some familiar faces, and hopefully we can do it in person soon.
Thank you so much, Senator Nguyen. We are looking forward to working with you, and we're going to get this thing passed. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for your support. We look forward to hearing more.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll just proceed and carry on if that's okay with everyone. We can just get this rally going and making sure folks are hyped up and ready to continue on through this day. We've got, again, this is virtual, but we still have a lot of advocacy work we need to do. And so set those meetings up. Folks need to hear the stories, as several of our friends have been saying in the chat box. I want to introduce Lance Morehouse. I don't think he needs any introduction in this community. But Lance will be reading our proclamation. Lance is the director of Sherwood Community Service. He's a parent. He's a fierce advocate. He is the historian as of now because of his tenure with our community. So Lance, you want to take it away?
Sure. Thank you, Courtney. So what I'd like to do, because words matter, the governor has endorsed a proclamation making today, February 10th, Employment for All Day. So I'll just take a couple of minutes here and read what is in the proclamation. So it says, whereas the state of Washington has a long history of leadership in protecting and promoting equal opportunity for people who have disabilities, and whereas individuals with disabilities continue to experience unemployment and poverty at rates substantially higher than those without disabilities, and whereas Washington State's Employment First law recognizes that all individuals, regardless of their disability, will be afforded an opportunity to pursue competitive employment. And whereas Washington is recognized nationally for its excellence and success in providing supported employment services to people with disabilities, and whereas employees with disabilities require assistance to ensure job success and should have access to the supports necessary to succeed in the workplace. Now, therefore, I, Jay Inslee, Governor of the State of Washington, do hereby proclaim February 10th, 2021 as Employment for All Day. So it goes on to say, in Washington, and I encourage employers to join me in fighting perceptions that are keeping people living with disabilities from joining the workforce, and encourage employers to hire people with disabilities as an integral part of their workforce. Signed this 27th day of January by Governor Jay Inslee. Woot, woot.
Woot, woot. Thank you. I have the real deal with me at my desk, by the way. So here it is. Here it is. Thank you so much, Lance, for reading that. Next, we're going to hear a few words from our friend and partner at OSPI, and I saw her just get on. Tonya May is the Director of Special Education. Tonya, my friend, you want to take it away and share what our collaboration looks like, why our work matters?
Sure, thanks. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to join you. February is a busy month. Does everyone else feel really busy these days?
Yeah.
So it's really good to be here. As Courtney said, my name is Tonya May, and I work as the Director of Special Education at the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. So we call it OSPI. And I wanted to open today by just sharing how grateful I am for this community. Over this past year, I've been thinking a lot about the word community and how it's changed a little bit over this past year. There's a quote that I share sometimes. I really love it. And it's, "We cannot live only for ourselves. 1,000 fibers connect us." And the ways we connect these days have changed a little bit. This feels so different from just a year ago when I got to be with you in person for the Advocacy Day. And I think about how it's more important than ever for us to find new ways to stay connected to each other. So in terms of my work and what I try to bring to this, I'm still working really closely with the Developmental Disabilities Administration, the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, and all kinds of other partners across transition. And we get together through the Transition Collaborative. And what we're trying to do is support employment for students with developmental disabilities. At the end of 2020, we submitted a legislative report, and I wanted to walk everyone through a few of those recommendations. We're asking for statewide funding to support school to work programs. Some funding to support navigation supports to help our students and families work with different agencies. Data sharing agreement between our schools and those agencies so that they know when students are leaving the school system and when they might need help to get employment. And then also we recommended funding to support a statewide and also regional transition networks so that our partners can get together, they can let us know what is needed and can help us be the best advocates that we can. We also at OSPI continue to support the Job Foundation pilot. And because COVID has impacted community and employment supports for so many students, I wanted to make sure this group knows that we're also working with our legislators right now to extend transition services to students to age 23 when they need it. So I just wanted to share for just a few minutes a little bit about my work and what I'm focused on. And I wanted to just close again with my thanks for this community. I miss all of you so much. I miss being able to visit job sites and go to classrooms and learn about the things that you love most. And I really look forward to the time when we can be together again in person. So I'm holding on to that.
Oh, Tonya, we miss you too. Thank you so much for your partnership and your great work. You've been such a champion, and we're going to do more. We have a lot more work to do, and we're going to do it. I'm going to now introduce Anthony, which he doesn't need an introduction. He is a pro at this. He's been here, done that. But Anthony, my friend, will you take it away?
Yeah, as I said before, my name's Anthony. I'm also a member of SAIL. And if you are interested in legislative advocacy and you want to do more and learn more, you can try to get a hold of Jessica Renner, who also works with the ARC of Washington, to be a part of it, or you can also get on our website. I'm gonna share my screen real quick. To this website right here, just type in selfadvocatesandleadership.com and you can register to be a member of SAIL, and we meet every second Tuesday of the month from 1 to 4, and we get together and talk about legislative bills and other things and empower self-advocates to become more involved with their legislators. And also you can talk with our Honorable Chair Ivanova Smith, who loves being our chair, and she does a good job at it too. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. And lastly, again, I mean, we have a lot of work to do. Virtual world adds a different component, but that does not mean we can stall and not meet with our decision makers. There's a lot to remind them of what is important and essential. And we thought who better to do that than Seth Dawson, our wonderful lobbyist. So Seth, my friend, are you on?
I am.
All right, take it away, Seth.
Let me first of all introduce a new associate of mine, Debbie. And by the marvels of new technology, it looks like we have 108 participants today. That will go a long ways toward accomplishing the things that we need to accomplish. We need your help. And it's a new world we live in, isn't it? But guess what? We don't have to drive to Olympia. We don't have to fight for a parking space. We don't have to get out in the cold. We don't even have to leave the comfort of our own homes to be advocate. So we will do that, however difficult it might be. But I'm reminded of one of my favorite movies, and that was Heartbreak Ridge. And Sergeant Gunning, otherwise known as Clint Eastwood, we're Marines. We adapt, we improvise, we overcome. And that's what we will do. In the words of Blazing Saddles, get ready to go do the voodoo that you do so well. And so to make sure that we're all ready to rock and roll, I think it's okay if everybody unmutes for the minute. Is that okay? Go ahead and unmute. And let me hear you say, booyah!
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 Booyah! Once again.
Booyah!
Booyah!
Yeah. You got the spirit. Well, let's go get them. Thanks for participating today.
Thank you. Seth, if you were not a lobbyist, you would have been an amazing football coach.
Or baseball.
Or baseball. Oh, that's right, baseball. That's a sport. Dang it. Well, everybody, thank you so much for your participation. This was such a great opportunity to connect and kind of revigorate our energy. We have a lot of work to do. Session is long, and this is just the beginning. Thank you so much for all of our friends that are on the call who participated and provided a wonderful presentation. I appreciate you all so much. This concludes, so we're wrapping up early. I don't know, I know that a big part of what folks miss is having an opportunity to communicate with one another and kind of have that connection. So Diana, are you open to letting folks on the call kind of have that space to talk and, you know, connect?
Yeah, we'll keep the link open till noon. And so people are welcome to visit and network and whatever.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. Yep, we're getting a lot of booyah, Seth. You did your job.
Well, we sure got a lot of energy today.
Yeah.
I'm Justine, by the way.
Hi, Justine. My Theraflu is wearing off, so.
Yeah, I work at Z. I've been at Z for 5 years, and I'll be hopefully go back to work soon. I'm with, with Lisa, my job coach. She's been helping. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being here, Justine.
Yeah. Me and her and I are part of Microsoft Advisory Council,
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice.
I just gotta
It's great work, Ivanova. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody did such a great job. This is Kyle from Seattle.
You.
And everybody's listening in. I was just looking at a particular bill earlier, and it had to do with abortions and people with Down syndrome. That and because we brought it up about a week ago, and the bill looked like to me, which was a great bill, that says you cannot discriminate a person who has disabilities if they want to bring a child in the world, and especially if you had a Down syndrome. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This bill particularly goes into just person with Down syndrome, and which I know you brought up earlier, another bill that says, hey, when the person is born, you have to give it up because if you have a thing called abusive or some sort of record on hand, but otherwise if you're a regular person with disability that can bring up a great environment, you just cannot discriminate against a person with a disability that wants to be able to bring up that child in a semi-normal world.
Thank you for sharing that, Kyle.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Hey Diana, are we able to take the spotlight view off and so that we can see everyone's faces? And this is a webinar, so actually I don't think we.
Well, actually,
under view, go ahead.
This is a meeting. It's not a webinar.
Oh, okay.
I did take the spotlight off because everybody's just showing up as they speak.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Well, everyone individually has to go up to the top right corner where it says view, and you can see speaker view or gallery view, and you would want to hit gallery view.
I fixed it. Gosh, I'm such an amateur. Thank you, Anthony.
That's the same thing that what Anthony was just about to say, the same thing I was going to say.
I figured it out, and I should know better. I do this. Well, it's good to see you all now that I can see you in gallery view. I can see more than just one.
Yep, we're having snow. Yikes.
Hi, Rama. I didn't see you earlier. I'm so glad you could join us.
I don't see any snow. Where's the snow? I'm looking out my window and I don't see no snow.
It's expected around sometime late tonight, early tomorrow morning.
Yeah, not yet.
According to what I've heard on forecasting.
I find it hilarious you guys are looking forward to snow, and as a person from Northeast Ohio, I'm running from it. You don't want to live by Lake Erie right now. It's freezing.
Yeah.
When I was visiting my parents in Montana, in Helen, Montana, during Christmas and during the winter hours, I said, heck, I'm used to it when I'm doing skiing, but
yeah,
as far as being Pacific Northwest, hey, I can do without it sometimes, unless it's up in the mountains.
I'll believe the snow when I see snow, because 2 weeks ago they were saying it was going to snow and there was no snow. So
the mythical creature.
I've heard the phrase snowpocalypse coming. So, I mean, they have a lot of hype to live up to. I don't know. Ivanova, I'm with you. I see no snow. It's just a bright, clear sky right now.
Yeah, it's all sunny here.
I know. Maybe that's because of your sunny disposition, Ivanova.
My sunny position.
I'm laughing, but it's not funny. You are really sweet.
Don't. They give him this false advertising. Not until I see the snow will I say it's snowing.
And there we go, build a snowman if it snows.
Tabitha from Bellingham says there is dusting of snow in Bellingham.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, in Bellingham. Okay, so it's gonna come down from. It's coming down from Canada.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's coming down. They're saying this weather front that's coming down from Canada, it's going to keep us down in the upper 20s, low 30s for a couple of days.
Weird. I live in Blaine and I don't see any snow outside.
Yeah, there's no snow.
Like I'm in Tri-Cities. It was 15 degrees last night.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's like literally see your breath. You're like, ooh, yeah.
I guess he's snowflake
like going down to the river and jumping in the river and doing a late polar plunge.
Back home in Ohio, there's something called polar vortex. I'm not sure if you guys ever heard of it before, but there's periods of time where we receive, weeks on end of weather where the temperature is below freezing and the wind chill is also below freezing, and your cars don't start; they just freeze shut. Super fun.
I'm from Pennsylvania. Are you really? I'm from Pennsylvania, so I'm familiar with that.
Yeah,
is your name Courtney Williams, or is it?
No, I'm Taylor Cunningham. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why my name is showing up as Courtney Williams.
I don't know. It's the name of the year. Yeah.
That's so weird. I didn't even notice it.
In the near future, if you have
shameless advertising, you guys. Shameless advertising is what I'm doing.
And just in the near future, if you come in somebody else's account, you just go up on the right hand under chat, and there's a call rename, and you can put your name in.
Yeah.
Oh, so weird.
I found
if you're Courtney for today, I've got some work for you to do.
I don't want your work.
When we have to replace that Band-Aid, we should put some Neosporin. Alexandra has a little ouchie on her nose. It's an itchy owie, and it's she's itching it, so we're trying to get her not to itch it, so we put a Band-Aid on it. We're trying to find a Neosporin, but we found an actor putting the Band-Aid on. She does not like putting Band-Aids on. That's why I had to be muted for a little bit. Because she was not happy. It's itchy. Little thing.
Don't scratch it.
Yeah, I've been trying to tell her that. Don't scratch it. Don't scratch it. And she keeps scratching it.
This is interesting. I don't remember who was just talking. I think it was Tonya who was talking about the transitions. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned before, I come from working in education, lots of different education, but I did work as a K-12 academic advisor for an online charter school in Ohio. Nice. And I never even heard of a transitions program before. It was not something that was discussed at least in my school, which is crazy because as an academic advisor, you're really supposed to be finding all the resources that are available to your students. We had thousands of students, so we had hundreds of students with disabilities. So I just, it's a completely new concept to me.
Tonya, you're still on the call. Do you want to kind of add why Washington's unique?
Sure. I mean, what it made me think of as you were sharing your story, thanks for sharing that. We don't thankfully hear as many of those stories here in Washington anymore, although, it can still happen. We have a lot of support from our legislators, and one of those supports is that every student in the state has to have a high school and beyond plan. That truly means everyone, and it should start no later than 8th grade. And our law also requires that not only that they have a plan, but that they have access to the same staff that all the other students do. So if counselors are building that, then all students should have access to working with the counselor on their high school and beyond plan.
Tonya, do you want to put your email in the chat box?
Sure.
Sure,
I will.
Our friend here is a little newer to our community.
Yeah, that's amazing. I also worked with adult learners who were trying their darndest to get their GEDs, and a lot of those folks have a variety of background, and there's a gazillion reasons why they weren't able to obtain a high school diploma or a GED before they became adults. But having that coverage up to the 23-year mark, I could see that being extremely beneficial.
Yeah, thanks. I put my email in there. We still have a long way to go, right? There's always more work to do, always ways to improve, and think about what students need.
Yep. It's so crazy because these discussions weren't happening back in my county in Ohio. This is so wild to me. And I just had no clue that there was a sub minimum wage. It doesn't even seem like something that could be legal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly, there's no law that outlaws it. So
weird.
Four states have eliminated it. We're hopeful Oregon's phasing it out. We need to be on that trajectory. I'm surprised as progressive as Washington is that we haven't yet, but we just have work to do. It takes a village, and time is time, and we got to educate properly, and making sure everyone's supported. That's been a lot of the fear in the past, where maybe folks who are being paid that will fall through the gaps, and we absolutely do not want that at the Community Employment Alliance. So we're really trying to do our due diligence and work with those folks that have those fears, because they're legitimate, and we want to make sure they feel all supported.
Wow. It's amazing that current employers can actually fill out a certificate to get the option to do sub minimum wage today. And so when we saw there were wage increases, like let's say the Seattle wage increase that's been happening over time, we had current employers fill out a certificate. And I personally approached 3 of them and said, is the person doing a good job? Yes. Did they have a good evaluation? Yes. Well, why are you going to pay them sub minimum wage?
Because they can.
Because they had this option.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really looking at, is this fair? Is this equitable?
Yeah, that really seems like it would violate the
human rights
You're right, exactly, yeah.
They added that to the list, I think it was in 2019, as a violation of the Human Rights Coalition nationally.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's something I think that has been on radar, but not really aggressively tackled, and we're being assertive. The current administration at the federal level is assertive, and I mean, is going to be dismissing that pretty quickly.
Well, it goes against the ADA too. Yeah.
All these things are accurate.
So weird. When I'm reading those ADA statements to my the people that I job coach for their training to keep it updated, I think it's wild that, you know, you're going through the training, you're signing off that you did it, and then you can have a certificate to go against that. You know, that statement that your company policy supports. It's really strange.
Some call it recreational pay. I call it slavery. Because like you're not being treated equal.
You're not.
Fairly with all the hard work you do.
We learned this year the way, so Washington deemed essential workforce, so 33% were individuals with disabilities. We are, I mean, essential to Washington State's economic recovery. And I mean, this is a workforce that deserves to, you know, be paid equal. And we're not even talking about living wage. We're talking about minimum wage. It's ridiculous.
It is wild too. If you think about how much money can be made in getting this stuff, pushing it along, like there's a market.
Yep.
Yeah.
I shared kind of a good news story in the chat right now if people are interested. On Monday the 22nd at 3 o'clock, we have one of our preschool inclusion demonstration sites. So it's our littles, and they talk in that program, talk about transition being lifelong. They teach those students about career and technical education to start having them think about the workforce and learn, what do the big kids do? So the registration's there if you're interested in checking it out. And they always post the recording. So if you can't do it live, they have the videos up.
Thanks, Tonya. Share that out. Very cool.
This is Diana. I'm also going to share. We've got a Q&A about the facts and myths on the COVID vaccine coming up on the 22nd at 6 p.m. And Dr. Stobie, Dr. Gill, and then David Eaton from the Autism Center will all three be there to answer questions.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, great, Diana. Thank you.
That's a much needed resource.
President of the Arc of King County and a board member of the Arc of Washington.
Oh, awesome. Those Dr. Gill and Dr. Gary Stobie came to SAIL and talked about it, and they did a really good job. So I recommend it. They SAIL got a lot of good information from them.
Actually, they also encouraged people who didn't want the vaccine to get the vaccine.
Well, we're not recommending or endorsing anybody do or do not, but people making informed choices with
they actually told people to talk to the doctor. They didn't tell people to take the vaccine. They told people to talk to the doctor about it. And they told people that you have every right to have your concerns, but, you know, just talk to your primary care doctor and, you know, list your concerns with them as well. So they actually didn't endorse people taking the vaccine. They said, if you want to take the vaccine, you're encouraged to do so. But if you have concerns and we can't answer them here, please talk to your primary care provider.
That's pretty much what I'm saying. Is like some people had the fear of it, and it's like they kind of get that sure of it that it doesn't do this, but there are different strains of it from different companies.
Well, we wanted to make sure, you know, we could round this out as much as possible. So we have Dr. Stobie and Dr. Gill, but then we added David Eaton, who's an ARMP at Children's Autism Center, and his wife is an infectious disease specialist who has been working on COVID for the last year. So I think we've got some three really good perspectives for people to ask their questions of. and hopefully, you know, be able to feel better about whether they want to get the vaccine or not. You know, and people have already submitted questions. We're getting a lot of those in. You know, what if they're taking some other kind of medication? Will that interact with it? You know, things like this that people want to know the answers to before they're going to decide whether to get it or not.
It's certainly an opportunity to build trust or further trust with our health specialists in our system. Much needed.
Agreed. Yeah, like I'm not taking it until I'm not pregnant no more, because I don't, they didn't test for people who were pregnant, and I've seen reports of people who took it were pregnant and they miscarried. So I'm not going to take it until I'm not pregnant no more. I will probably wait a little bit. Like I'll let others go ahead of me. Like others can go ahead of me and get the vaccine. There's probably people who need it more than I do right now. So I'm fine with waiting. I'm not against taking the vaccine, and I've never been against taking it. I'm willing to wait because it's like, I want to make sure it's safe for my baby, you know?
Everyone, I have to log off. Thank you so much for joining. Ivanova, you were such a wonderful MC. And I mean, we talked about you going into labor yesterday, but she didn't do it. That was going to be the showstopper, but.
No, I
darn
don't
it, Ivanova.
Yet. The baby's practicing. I think Hildegard's practicing, but she's not ready yet to come out yet. So we're still waiting.
What's your name, Ivanova?
Hildegard.
Hildegard. I love
Hildegard.
it.
Her full name is going to be
Oh
Hildegard.
my goodness.
Hildegard Leslie Ivanova Smith.